Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Hunter's Wheelhouse. I got my great friend with me, Mr. Tanner Mooney. Tanner Mooney, how are you today, brother?
I'm doing good, man. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm hurting like heck, but
Making it.
I'm making it, brother. I'm making it. I had a little slip yesterday. I twisted wrong. I'm gonna tell you something. I had ended up in the ER, had tore a ton of ligaments in my lower back and everything. I could not believe I'd done it. I was like, are you
Well,
kidding me?
we're gonna have to get you some bubble wrap.
I don't even know if that'll help. I'll pop all the bubbles. Today, what we're going to do, we're going to do a little puppy talk. I have a few questions that came in from some folks that have been watching the show. So I figured we'd discuss those as well and maybe better our knowledge in some areas. So
Okay.
let's give a little shout out to some of the puppy owners out there that love puppies and training puppies like me.
You got to be a special kind of hunt pups.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Now you got a little pup. You got off my dad. How's he bred?
He is off a Dan Canarium Sundowns Rat Trap dog, which is directly off a rat attack and a hickory nut hairy female, and out of that great Trackman female that y'all got down there that's produced all the winners, straight off of Trackman. So
She is a producer. She really is.
she is.
Yeah, she's a nice female. So, your pup in particular, and how did that all come about? You know, picking your pup and stuff like that. And what do you look for?
Well, really and truly, I usually pick my pups, but this one was kind of picked for me. I called your dad and I seen where he had, me and your dad was talking actually at the World Hunt last year. And I was asking him if he was going to breed track anymore. And he said, yeah. He said, we're going to breed her. And he said, I just bred her to rat, Dan's rat dog. And I said, okay. I said, how about put me on the list for pup? He said, you got it. It's okay. So he said, what kind of pup you want? I said, I want the biggest, prettiest, blanket back male pup in the litter. He said, done, no problem. So your dad kind of picked me one and called me and said, hey, I got your pup down here. Come look at him. So I come down to your house. We went hunting. I walked over and looked at him. And your dad knows how to pick them, and he knows what I like. And he picked the one, picked one like something that I like. He picked one that stayed to himself and stayed back away from other pups. Big, pretty, big mouth, that kind of thing. And so your mom and dad kind of got him picked for me, and I'm glad they did. He's been a good one.
Dad's always said, if you're gonna hunt one, he ain't gonna be ugly.
No, sir. No, sir. If he comes from Wayne Hunter, he's going to look like something. He ain't going to look like no pickle. I promise you.
That's a guarantee, buddy. He likes a good looking dog. He's always told me, he said, son, there's too many pretty ones to have an ugly one.
Hey, my dad's always told me, he said, you can feed that pretty one for the same amount you can feed that ugly one.
Amen, brother.
So
amen.
might as well have that good looking one.
Yeah. So I know you've been pretty excited for him. I think he's 7 months old, right?
Yes, sir.
And this little rascal's running and treeing at 7 months old.
Yeah, he started treeing when he was 5 months old.
Seriously.
The first night I took him to the woods, he split and had a coon. He had no clue what he was barking at. All he knew is he was tree with something sitting above his head.
And he was happy to do it.
He had about a half grown coon up a bush just pouring it to him.
Wow.
And,
now before you got to the bush there, what all transpired from the time you got him till he made his first tree?
Well, I brought him home like I do all my pups. I bring them home. I ride them around in the truck with me. I get them out there in the yard, play with them, get them coming, get them minding, handling a little bit, leash broke, that sort of thing. And I do some stuff. I'll take a coon tail or a ball or a piece of rope, put a little coon scent on it, put it on a fishing pole, throw it out, reel it in, make a game out of it. Let them chase it across the yard, back and forth across the yard, that kind of thing. Just all they know they're doing is playing, but they relate that smell to playing.
Right.
So, it makes it fun for them, and I think that's how you keep these dogs going, and for the long run is keep it fun. So
yeah, definitely. And I learned some stuff in the last episode I had with Miss Holly Barker. It was really interesting when she was talking about sports nutrition, but also how the sensory gland works. And she was talking about when they're engaged in action, the scent gland actually turns off. So when that adrenaline overload kicks in, they're no longer smelling. So what we are doing, me, I do a ton of scent ball training. I do scent ball training all the time. I always use it on my puppies. But I didn't know I was doing a thing that was special. And that's what she was saying. She said, well, the reason why you're going and you're having so much success and training these dogs a little bit better than I used to. I'm not saying I'm better training better than you per se, but
Right,
better
right,
than
right.
better than what I used to do. It's simply because of my training technique, and they learn off of that scent that I put on the ball. That's what you're going to play. Well, naturally, that's their gland,
Right.
so they're naturally playing with that scent gland, and as they play with that scent gland, by the time I take them to the woods, they're naturally just chasing whatever their ball is.
Right. Right.
So it's just naturally happening, and so that's how I started the little female you had, Fancy. That's how I started her. And I think that's a big thing. I think that you really should stay away from the roll cages, and I know that's an opinion, and I might get some flack for it, and that's
A little
okay.
touchy subject.
That's touchy. It's touchy, but I'll be honest on where I stand with it. I prefer to not introduce my dog to anything in a cage, and the reason why, that's not natural.
Right.
That is not natural, and you have a scent hound. You don't have a
Yeah.
sight hound.
Right.
You're
That's funny you say that. I was actually talking to a boy the other day, and he was talking about showing, he's starting this pup, and he's like, man, he said, this thing has went absolutely crazy on me. I said, what are you talking about? And he said, well, I showed her some cage coons. He said, now every time you walk her by a cage, whether there's coon in it or not, she just goes crazy over it.
man.
So, I mean, what you're doing, you're teaching them to bark at something. You're not teaching them to track. You're not teaching them to do anything like that. That's why I don't show one a cage coon. Now, I may take a cage coon and turn him loose while the pup's in the box, and then wait 5 or 10 minutes, and then get the pup out of the box and turn him loose on that hot coon. Now I may do that, or I may lay a drag, but I'm not showing it to him.
Right.
He's to be able to treat it, he's got to use his nose to get it treated. He's not treating it because he's looking at it.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. Definitely. Yeah. If I was to definitely say on some up and coming mistakes, I used to have a little dog. I used to have a little dog called Polygraph Polly. And the reason why that heifer didn't know how to trick in, she would lie. So we call her Polygraph Polly. But the thing about her was I ruined her in treeing contest. And so daddy gave her to me. And do you know, and I to this day, I don't even know how many treeing contests I put her in. But she was never beaten, and that was including at the Great American.
dang.
But I ruined her on a cage coon. And you took her to the woods, buddy. She didn't care. She'd run around your feet. She had nothing. But if she seen a cage, she'd come alive.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, she got like 74 barks in 30. It was insane. She was a double chopper. Yeah. You just couldn't beat her. She was stupid. The problem is I ruined her. So good point about the cages, man. I mean, really, it's a smart thing to stay away from. Yeah. Now, you also travel with them quite a bit as well, don't you?
I do. I put mine on the road. I mean, I'll go track supply. I bring them to work. If I'm going to the store to get a drink, pack of crackers, they in the truck with me. And the reason I do that, this is my opinion on it, is, I competition hunt. I'm running up and down the roads, and these dogs are like people. They can't. Some of them can take it, and some of them can't. I mean, some of them can't take the hauling. Some of them can't take the being in the box for 10 or 12 hours, going down the road. So I think when they're 8 weeks old, if you go ahead and put them in the truck and haul them around, and you get them where they're used to the road, when they get to treeing coons and get to, get enough to start hauling to these hunts, these dogs, they're so used to being in the truck. When you take them to the hunt, they're as good at the hunt as they are at home. And, you said a lot of these hunts, a guy's got a dog that can just tree the fire out of coons at home, and then he puts him on the road and he takes him 6-7 hours away from home and turns him loose, and he just acts stupid. And you see these guys go, man, I don't know what's wrong with him. He don't do this at home. I don't know what the world's wrong with him. And there's nothing wrong with him other than he ain't never been hauled, and he can't take it.
Yeah.
So, that's why I start these pups, man. When they're 8 weeks old, I put them in the truck, I haul them around, and, I get them used to being on the road. So that way, when I get them to the point to start competition hunting them, they're used to it. They can take it. They can take the haul.
Yeah. Now, see, and I stepped back, from the competition side of things, and that. I've stepped back now for about almost 3 years now, and it's because I wanted to get out there and I wanted to retrain myself, per se. I wanted to get out there and learn my dog better. I noticed in competition hunts, and I'm not going to dig into competition hunting today, but I'm going to talk about handling in general. I noticed in handling, I was keeping that garment in my hand. Mm-hmm. Every hunt, boy, I was watching it because everybody else was. And I went down in that rabbit hole, and I mean, you know me, I'm big into computers. So I mean, you know, I'm a nerd when it comes to all this Garmin stuff. But what happened was I wanted to take a step back. I wanted to reevaluate how I was training, and I noticed that how I was training kind of I walked away from the ear.
Right.
You know, the ear side of things. What I mean by the ear side of things, listening and paying attention to what your dog is doing. Now, I'm not saying that the Garmin isn't a great tool, because it is a phenomenal tool, because you
Oh
can
yeah, I
sit
wouldn't
there.
turn one loose without it.
That's right. And I mean, there's times I'll sit there and when my dog barks, I'll look at the Garmin because I want to see how that dog's working.
That's right.
It can teach you some incredible things. So I'm not telling you while you're training your pups, do not look at your Garmin, because I do. But what I am saying is when you cut that puppy loose, pay attention, walk with him, watch how he hunts, try to put your eyes on your dogs. You know, I'm going to tell you something else I do, Tanner, and it changed the game around, and you got fancy now, and you know this for yourself. I stopped training my dogs the way you hunt them in Florida, and that's cutting them down to swamp heads and blowing them in the swamps, because most hunts, they're up north, you know.
Right. Yeah, these bigger hunts.
The bigger hunts, and then you're hunting more of the patches and stuff like that. So I was able to get with a few farmers and make sure that I could take care of their farms a little better for them and manage them. And so what I did is I started taking them to watermelon fields, and that's where I trained fancy. And what I'm going to dive into there is on the training part of things. Something that was really cool about the watermelon fields is you could do two big things. You could work on recalls, and then you can also work on accuracy. You can really work on accuracy because you're in a lot of coon, you're simulating the northern style, you're hunting patches, and you're hunting woods that are strains, you know, that make L's.
Right.
And yes, sir, those fence rows, which is more important up in your area. You have a lot of fence rows, right?
Right. Yeah, we hunt a lot of cow pastures and stuff. A lot of creek banks, cow pastures, field edges, stuff like that.
Right. And so y'all don't have, like down in South Georgia, y'all don't have these 20,000 acre swamps.
No.
Right. And so, and this is a piece of advice for anyone that's hunting in southern regions. You know, there's nothing wrong with hunting your dogs in the swamps. I still hunt my dogs in the swamps and want to. But you need to make sure that you put them in some of these hotter areas where there's a lot of coon. Because I won't tell you. Go ahead.
You gotta expose them to everything. That's the way I look at it. I mean, I hunt, like, especially where I hunt at, I hunt a lot of fence rows, cow pastures, stuff like that. So that kind of stuff is simulating going up north. You know, I might go 45 minutes north of me and hunt in some mountain type stuff, some big refuges and stuff, you know, where it's kind of harder to tree coons, which kind of simulates, you know, going, you know, we go to Tennessee or North Carolina or Kentucky or West Virginia or whatever. That kind of simulates kind of that kind of thing. And then I also come down and hunt with you in Florida, and we hunt some swamps and stuff and teach the dog how to get in some water, you know, and work tracks in water and stuff like that. So I think these pups, to get them on the road, to really go to be successful in these hunts and stuff, you got to really make them well rounded. You got to kind of expose them to a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why when you got her, I told you, I said, you remember that time you called me? And you told me you were like, Jason, I don't know what she won't. And I said, Tanner, I said, she's got to be your buddy.
Yeah.
And you buddied up with her. And boy, it took how many weeks?
Shoot, it took me 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah. Took 3 or 4 weeks. And that's a good lesson. That's a good lesson for everybody listening today. Please listen to that. It took this man, and I told him, I said, she's a nice little dog. And she is. She's a nice little dog. But you know, it's a good lesson for everybody. Is it took Tanner 3 to 4 weeks, and he believed in me. And I told him, I said, Tanner, listen to me. I said, make her your buddy, take her to work, and do not miss a beat with her. You took her to everywhere with you, didn't you?
I took her everywhere, man. I'm an auctioneer. I took her to some sales. I took her everywhere I went. She was in my passenger seat, you know, because I got her. She didn't know me, and I didn't know her, you know, and I just went kick her loose, and she run all night. She never made a tree. And I was like, that's when I called you. I was like, man, this thing's wilder than a deer. Does she ever get treed? And he's like, Tanner. Judge said, Tanner, take her home, make her you buddy, and she'll show you something. So I spent 2 or 3 weeks. I didn't even hunt her. I just, you know, I took her to work. I done a little bit of everything with her, you know, and then one night I took her and unsnapped her, and she traded 4 singles, and it's been just right on ever since.
Yeah.
Some of these dogs you really got a buddy with.
Yeah. You got a buddy with them, and you got to love them back, man. Some of these dogs are different, and I want some people to understand we're not talking about every dog like this. There's some dogs that'll hunt for anyone. It really is.
Yeah.
So something that we want to get into, quite a few things that I have some questions on from people who've been watching, is recalls.
Yeah, sure.
So on recall, what do you do?
I tone break all mine. I get out. I've got a little spot made back in my backyard, this little fenced in area, and I'll take my pups out there from when they're, real little. I'll take them out there and put a collar on them, take my Garmin, take them out there and just work on, calling them. I'll call. If they don't come, I'll tone. If they don't come then, I'll vibrate them, call, kind of scold them. If they don't come then, I'll put it real low and I'll bump them a little bit, and get them coming. And, get them tone broke. And then once they get tone broke, they've got where they're, get them tone broke. And then after they've been toned a couple times, you get where you can holler for them and they're coming.
So, Mr. Mooney, I do have a good question for you. This one's actually from a fan of mine. So, when you're training your puppies and you take your puppies to the tree, do you recut or do you take them back to the box?
I recut.
Okay. Tell me why.
I recut everything because that's one reason where I hunt at. I hunt big spots where I have to recut unless I want to call it a night. So that's one reason. But probably the biggest reason is on account of the hunts. We're recutting dogs for hunting big patches. Dogs are staying split up, so we're having to recut. And so I recut everything. I mean, I start them from scratch. I don't drop hunt at all. Now a lot of people do. And my dad and my grandpa, they used to, but that's the way the hunts were set up like back then. You drop, call time out, get your dogs, go to another spot, drop again. We don't do that much no more because dogs don't get treed together. So we recut. So from the get-go, I recut my pups.
Well, I'm gonna tell you right now, that's the best way. That I couldn't agree more. That's 100% the best way. That's from the ground up. When I start a puppy, I take him in there. Even when I cut him with old dogs, I recut that old dog and let that puppy learn to go on. Now, I do have a question. This is from another person that's asked me. They asked me, what do you do with a dog that, say you're training a pup, you're training him alone. You don't have the benefits of the old dog. We're training this puppy alone. Your puppy goes in there, makes a tree, trees a coon. You walk, how far do you walk him away from the tree? But the problem is, here's the question. The puppy keeps coming back to the tree. How do you fix it?
Okay, now the way I fix mine is I'll just leash them, go back to the tree, leash them, walk them off, recut them. If they go back again, I'll get me a little help. I'll get somebody, whoever I'm hunting with, and the big thing with these pups, man, is pick your battles. Pick your battles with these things because, they're like a kid. They don't know what exactly they're bred to do to tree coons, but they know how to tree coons, but all the rest of this stuff we have to train them, we have to put into them. So kind of picky battles. If he's going back to the tree that night, I might go home, wait for another night, if I'm by myself, get somebody to help me. I'll take him. I'll make somebody stand at the tree. I'll walk him off. I'll recut him. And if he comes back in there, they're waiting on him. They're waiting for him to come to him. They'll, hey, get out of here. Run him off, make him go on. And that's how I do it. There's other ways to do it. Some people use a shock collar. Some people, there's a few ways to do it. That's how I do it. I recruit me a body to stand at the tree, and we'll run them off to me. So that works the best for me, So
yeah, well, we got the benefit of palmetto bushes.
Yeah, that works too.
So what we'll do is old Spider. He used to come back to the tree, and so Dad, we didn't know that about him, and then when we were hunting, we learned that he would do it. And so Dad said, "All right, we're gonna break it out." I said, "Well, we break it out." He said, "Breaking out the palmetto." I said, "All right." So he stood me there at the tree. He walked Spider out about 35, 40 yards after he treated coon. And sure enough, he said, "You stand there and be real quiet. And here comes Spider." Chicka, 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 chicka. He got right there, boy. When he got right there, I went to shaking that palmetto leaf and chasing him with that palmetto leaf. That scared the world out of him. But I tell you what, for about 3 or 4 months there, you didn't have to worry about going back to say, no.
He didn't want no more of that getting chased with a palmetto, did he?
No, sir. Plus, he heard that water splashing behind him. He thought it was Bigfoot with a palmetto bush.
He didn't want no more.
No. And something I really want to tell folks, be very, very careful how harsh you are on them going back to the tree.
Oh yeah.
And take your time with it. If they're going back to the tree, just take your time. Don't be too rough on them. Tanner brought up a very good point about shocking. He doesn't do it. I do not ever shock a dog for going back to a tree. I'm sorry. I do not feel that's the way to fix them. I feel that's the way you can ruin a nice dog. And there's other ways you can do it.
I've seen a lot of people do that, shock, use a shock collar for a dog coming back to tree. And in some cases it works.
Yeah.
But now this is my opinion on it. Some dogs can take that shock collar and some dogs can't take that shock collar. It's just like a kid. Some kids can take a scold. You yelling at them, telling them, hey, now don't do that no more. Some kids can't. Some kids break down. Right. Dogs the same way. Some dogs can take a shock and some dogs, they can't. They'll just shut down on you. So I've seen a lot of good dogs ruin with a shock collar because they'll go back to the tree, they'll bump them off of it, and then the next thing you know, it might fix it for the night. But the next thing you know, them suckers is leaving trees.
Like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more content from Hunter's Wheelhouse.